The phone rang at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night, jolting me awake from the first peaceful sleep I'd had in weeks. I knew before answering that it would be my brother Marcus calling from Vancouver, probably asking for money again. This had become a pattern, late-night calls when he was desperate. Emotional manipulation disguised as family loyalty, and me saying yes before my brain could catch up with my heart. "Hey, David." Marcus's voice was strained, almost tearful. "I really hate to ask, but I'm in a tough spot again. Could you lend me $5,000? I promise I'll pay you back this time." I sat on the edge of my bed in my Chicago apartment, staring at the city lights through my window. At 52, I had worked my entire adult life to build financial security. I owned my home, had a decent retirement fund, and after my divorce 3 years ago, I finally had peace. But somehow, I always found myself in situations like this, being asked to fix problems that weren't mine, to give money I couldn't afford to lose, to sacrifice my hard-earned peace for other people's chaos. "Marcus, you still owe me from last time," I said quietly, but I already knew how this conversation would end. I know, but David, you're my big brother. If you don't help me, who will? Mom and Dad always said we should look out for each other. There it was, the guilt, the family obligation, the emotional blackmail wrapped in memories of our parents who had died 5 years ago. I felt that familiar weight in my chest, the same feeling that had led me to say yes too many times before. But this time, something was different. This time, I was exhausted. "Let me think about it," I said, which was code for yes, but I need time to figure out how. After hanging up, I couldn't sleep. I found myself thinking about all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. My ex-wife, Sarah, had left me partly because I was always taking care of everyone else's problems instead of focusing on our marriage. My adult children called me mainly when they needed something. My colleagues at the accounting firm where I worked knew I was the guy who would stay late, cover extra shifts, and never complain. I was 52 years old, and I felt like an emotional ATM machine. The next morning, over coffee with my neighbor Bob, I found myself spilling everything. Bob was retired, lived alone, and seemed to have figured out something about life that I hadn't. "You know what your problem is, David," Bob said, stirring his coffee. "You think saying no makes you a bad person. But what's making you a bad person is saying yes so much that you're miserable all the time." "But family is family," I protested. "Family doesn't mean being a doormat," Bob replied. "You know, there's this psychiatrist my daughter mentioned, Dr. Walker Teddy, down in Texas. She went to him when she was having similar problems. Maybe you should look him up." That afternoon, I found myself researching Dr. Walker Teddy online. His approach to boundary setting and psychological health intrigued me. According to his website, he specialized in helping people understand when helping others was actually hurting themselves. After reading several articles he'd written, I decided to schedule a video consultation. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in front of my laptop, looking at Dr. Teddy's kind but wise face on the screen. He had gray hair, thoughtful eyes, and spoke with a gentle Texas accent that immediately put me at ease. "David," Dr. Teddy began after I'd explained my situation, "tell me something. When was the last time you felt truly at peace?" I thought about it for a long moment. Honestly, maybe 3 years ago, right after my divorce was finalized. For about 2 months, before everyone started asking me for things again. Dr. Teddy nodded. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, talked about something called psychological boundaries. He believed that people who don't protect their psychological space end up losing themselves. They become what I call ghost people. They exist mainly to serve other people's needs. That hit me like a punch to the gut. A ghost person. That's exactly what I felt like. In my 30 years of practice, Dr. Teddy continued, I've noticed that there are 5 specific things people ask for that are red flags. When someone asks for these things, it's usually a sign that they see you as a resource, not as a person deserving of respect. He pulled out a notepad and began writing. Let me share these with you, and we'll work on recognizing them in your life. The first red flag: taking responsibility for things that aren't yours. David, tell me about your brother's situation, Dr. Teddy said. I explained how Marcus had made a series of bad business decisions, got into debt, and now regularly called me to bail him out. He says it's just temporary, I added. How many times has it been just temporary? Dr. Teddy asked. I counted in my head. 7 times in the last 2 years. And has he ever paid you back? Well, no, but he's struggling, ... Double quotes. Dr. Teddy held up his hand gently. David, here's what I want you to understand. Your brother's financial problems are the result of his choices. By constantly bailing him out, you're not helping him learn. You're enabling him to keep making the same mistakes. He explained that in Canada. There was a famous case study about a man named Robert from Toronto who spent 15 years bailing out his adult son. The son never learned to manage money because he knew his father would always rescue him. When Robert finally stopped, his son was angry at first, but within a year, he had learned to budget and live within his means. But what if something really bad happens to Marcus? I asked. There's a difference between a genuine emergency and a pattern of poor choices, Dr. Teddy explained. A genuine emergency is a medical crisis or a natural disaster, repeated financial problems from bad decisions. That's a pattern you shouldn't enable. Dr. Teddy gave me my first assignment for the next month. Every time someone asks you to take responsibility for something, ask yourself, is this my problem to solve, or am I being asked to rescue someone from their own choices? The second red flag: lending money. During our second session, I told Dr. Teddy about other money requests I'd received, not just from Marcus, but from colleagues, friends, and even my neighbor who wanted to borrow money for a vacation. David, let me share a statistic with you, Dr. Teddy said. Studies from financial advisors in the United States show that 70% of personal loans between family members and friends are never fully repaid, and 60% of those loans damage the relationship permanently. He told me about a study done in Australia where researchers followed families for 5 years. They found that family members who regularly lent money to relatives reported higher stress levels, worse sleep, and more relationship conflicts than those who had learned to say no. But what do I say when Marcus calls again? I asked. Dr. Teddy smiled. You say, Marcus, I care about you, but I can't lend you money anymore. Instead, I'd be happy to help you find a financial counselor or look at your budget together. That sounds so cold, I protested. David, what's cold is allowing someone to damage their own future by never learning financial responsibility. What's cold is sacrificing your own financial security for someone who won't take responsibility for theirs. He gave me a second assignment. Create a simple rule for yourself. I will only give money as a gift in genuine emergencies, and I will never lend money expecting it back. The third red flag: getting involved in family conflicts. During our third session, I brought up something that had been bothering me for months. My 2 adult children, Jennifer and Michael, were fighting over who would get our family cottage when I died. They kept calling me, each wanting me to take their side. They want me to be the judge, I told Dr. Teddy. Jennifer says Michael doesn't deserve it because he never visits. Michael says Jennifer is greedy because she makes more money. Dr. Teddy shook his head. David, by getting involved in their conflict, you're not solving anything. You're just becoming another person for them to fight over. He told me about a case from the United Kingdom where a father named William spent 2 years trying to mediate between his 3 sons over inheritance issues. The fighting got so bad that William developed anxiety and high blood pressure. When he finally stepped back and told his sons to work it out themselves, they were forced to communicate directly with each other and eventually found a solution. But they're my children, I said. Shouldn't I help them solve their problems? Help them, yes. Solve their problems for them. No, Dr. Teddy explained. When parents constantly mediate between adult children, the children never learn to resolve conflicts on their own. They stay emotionally immature. Dr. Teddy taught me a phrase that would change my life. I love you both, but this is between you two. I have confidence that you can work it out. My third assignment was to practice stepping back from conflicts that weren't directly about me. The fourth red flag: asking you to change who you are. A month into our sessions, I brought up something my daughter Jennifer had said that really hurt me. She'd told me I was too old-fashioned and needed to get with the times because I didn't use social media and preferred reading books to watching Netflix. She says I'm embarrassing when I talk about things I care about, like history and classic music. I told Dr. Teddy. She wants me to be more like her friends' dads who are into sports and modern technology. Dr. Teddy's face grew serious. David, this is perhaps the most dangerous request of all. When someone asks you to change your core personality, your interests, or your values to make them more comfortable, they're asking you to erase yourself. He shared research from New Zealand about older adults who were pressured by family members to change their lifestyles and interests. These adults showed higher rates of depression and anxiety than those who were accepted for who they were. Your interests and values are part of your identity, Dr. Teddy explained. They're the result of 52 years of life experience. Why should you throw that away to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be? But I want Jennifer to be proud of me, I said. David, if Jennifer can only be proud of you when you pretend to be someone else, then her pride isn't worth having. Real love accepts people as they are. Dr. Teddy told me about a client from Australia, a man named George who loved classical music and opera. His family mocked him and pressured him to listen to pop music instead. When George finally stood his ground and said, "This is who I am, take it or leave it," his family initially resisted, but eventually they came to respect his confidence and authenticity. My fourth assignment was to identify one thing about myself that I would never compromise, no matter who asked me to change it. The fifth red flag: putting their feelings above your own. During our fifth session, I was feeling more confident about setting boundaries, but Dr. Teddy brought up the most challenging issue yet. David, tell me about a time when someone asked you to sacrifice your happiness for theirs, he said. I thought about my ex-wife Sarah. Before our divorce, Sarah used to say that my hobbies made her feel lonely. She wanted me to give up my weekend hiking trips and my book club because she said it made her feel like I didn't want to spend time with her. So I gave them up. And how did that work out? Dr. Teddy asked gently. Terrible. I felt resentful and trapped. And she still wasn't happy because I was miserable. It didn't fix our marriage problems. It just made me lose myself. Dr. Teddy nodded. Carl Jung believed that when we sacrifice our authentic selves to manage other people's emotions, we create what he called shadow resentment. The resentment doesn't go away, it just hides and eventually destroys the relationship anyway. He told me about research done in Canada that followed couples for 10 years. The couples where one partner regularly sacrificed their interests and happiness for the other had a 75% divorce rate. The couples where both partners maintained their individual interests and emotional health had only a 25% divorce rate. But doesn't love mean putting the other person first? I asked. Love means caring about the other person's well-being, Dr. Teddy corrected. But if someone's happiness depends on your unhappiness, that's not love, that's emotional dependency. He gave me my final assignment. Practice saying this phrase. I care about your feelings, but I can't sacrifice my well-being to manage your emotions. Over the next 3 months, I practiced everything Dr. Teddy had taught me. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks. When Marcus called again asking for money, I used Dr. Teddy's script. Marcus, I care about you, but I can't lend you money anymore. I'd be happy to help you find a financial counselor. Marcus was angry. He accused me of being selfish and said I was abandoning family. It hurt, but I held firm. 3 weeks later, Marcus called to tell me he'd gotten a financial counselor and was working on a budget. He actually thanked me for forcing him to take responsibility. When Jennifer and Michael tried to drag me into their cottage dispute again, I said, I love you both, but this is between you two. I have confidence you can work it out. They were frustrated at first, but within a month, they had worked out a timeshare arrangement on their own. When Jennifer criticized my interests again, I said calmly, this is who I am. I'm not going to change my personality to make anyone more comfortable. She was taken aback, but over time, she began to respect my boundaries and even started asking me about the books I was reading. The biggest test came when my neighbor Bob asked me to help him move for the 3rd time in a year. Old me would have said yes immediately. New me asked, Bob, why are you moving so often? It turned out he couldn't make up his mind about where he wanted to live and kept asking friends to help him move back and forth. I told him kindly but firmly that I couldn't keep helping him with moves until he figured out what he really wanted. 6 months after my first session with Dr. Teddy, we had our final call. David, how do you feel? He asked. Lighter, I said immediately. Like I'd been carrying a heavy backpack for years and finally took it off. Tell me about your relationships now, Dr. Teddy requested. They're better, I said, somewhat surprised to realize it was true. Marcus and I talk more honestly now. My kids respect me more. Even my relationship with Jennifer has improved because I'm not constantly trying to please her. Dr. Teddy smiled. That's what Jung called authentic relating. When you show up as your real self with clear boundaries, you attract healthier relationships and improve the ones you already have. He shared a final piece of wisdom. David, remember that teaching people how to treat you isn't cruel, it's kind. When you enable someone's bad behavior, you're not helping them grow. When you set boundaries, you're giving them the opportunity to become better people. What about people who can't accept my boundaries? I asked. Then they're showing you who they really are, Dr. Teddy said. Some people will only want you in their life if they can take advantage of you. Those aren't the people you want anyway. A year later, my life looked completely different. I had joined a hiking club and made new friends who appreciated me for who I was. My relationship with my children was stronger because it was based on mutual respect rather than me constantly trying to please them. I had saved money for the first time in years because I wasn't constantly bailing out family members. Most importantly, I felt like myself again. I wasn't walking on eggshells, constantly worried about disappointing people or managing their emotions. I had learned that saying no to the wrong things meant I could say yes to the right things. Marcus had learned to manage his money and even started a small business. When he called now, it was to share good news or just to chat, not to ask for money. Jennifer had started reading some of the books I recommended, and we had deeper conversations than we'd had in years. Michael had learned to approach conflicts more maturely, and our relationship improved significantly. I met a woman named Carol at the hiking club. What I loved about our relationship was that it was built on two complete people choosing to share their lives, not two half people trying to complete each other. We both had our own interests, our own friends, and our own boundaries. One evening, as I was reading in my favorite chair, my phone rang. For a moment, I felt that old anxiety. Who needed something from me now? But when I saw it was my friend Tom from work, I answered with curiosity instead of dread. Hey David, I was wondering if you could cover my shift on Saturday. I know it's last minute, but my wife wants to go shopping. Old me would have said yes immediately, even though I had plans to go hiking. New me paused and asked, Tom, is this an emergency? Well, no, not really. My wife just really wants to go shopping that day. I'm sorry, but I can't cover for you. I have plans. But maybe you could ask around and see if anyone else is available. There was a moment of silence. Then Tom said, Oh, okay, no problem. After hanging up, I smiled. I had protected my own time and peace without feeling guilty. I had learned that my time and energy were valuable, and I didn't have to give them away just because someone asked. That Saturday, I went hiking with my club and had a wonderful time. I thought about Dr. Teddy's words. When you respect yourself, you teach others to respect you too. Looking back, I realized that learning to set boundaries wasn't just about saying no to other people. It was about saying yes to myself. It was about recognizing that I had value beyond what I could do for others. The 5 red flags Dr. Teddy taught me had become my guide. 1. Taking responsibility for things that aren't mine. I learned to ask, is this my problem to solve? 2. Lending money. I created a clear policy and stuck to it. 3. Getting involved in family conflicts. I practiced stepping back and letting others solve their own problems. 4. Changing who I am. I embraced my authentic self and stopped apologizing for my interests and values. 5. Putting their feelings above my own. I learned that managing other people's emotions wasn't my job. These weren't just rules, they were tools for building a better life. They helped me distinguish between helping people and enabling them, between being kind and being a pushover, between loving someone and losing myself. The most surprising discovery was that setting boundaries actually improved my relationships. People respected me more when I respected myself. My family learned to solve their own problems instead of depending on me to fix everything. Friends appreciated our time together more because they knew I was choosing to be there, not just doing what was expected. I also learned that some people would never accept my boundaries, and that was okay. Dr. Teddy had warned me that some relationships might end when I stopped being a people pleaser. A few colleagues distanced themselves when they realized I wouldn't always cover their shifts. One cousin stopped calling when I wouldn't lend money anymore. But what I lost in quantity, I gained in quality. The people who stayed in my life were those who valued me as a person, not just as a resource. These relationships were deeper, more honest, and more fulfilling than the ones based on what I could do for others. 6 months ago, I started volunteering at a community center, teaching financial literacy to young adults. It felt good to help people in a structured way, where my boundaries were clear and my energy was respected. I was using my skills and experience to make a difference without sacrificing my own well-being. Last month, I got a call from Dr. Teddy. He was writing a book about boundary setting and asked if he could include my story with details changed for privacy. "David," he said, "you've become a model of what's possible when someone learns to respect themselves." As I write this, I'm sitting in my peaceful living room, planning a weekend trip with Carol. My phone isn't ringing with crisis calls. My bank account is stable. My stress levels are the lowest they've been in years. I've learned that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. You can't give what you don't have, and if you don't take care of yourself, you can't really take care of anyone else. To anyone reading this who feels like an emotional ATM, who says yes when they want to say no, who carries everyone else's problems on their shoulders, I want you to know that there's another way. You don't have to sacrifice your peace for other people's comfort. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Learning to set boundaries was the best gift I ever gave myself. And surprisingly, it was also the best gift I gave to the people I love, because it forced them to grow and become more responsible for their own lives. Your life matters. Your peace matters. Your happiness matters. And anyone who asks you to sacrifice these things for their convenience doesn't deserve them in the first place. As Dr. Teddy always said, the people who mind your boundaries don't matter, and the people who matter won't mind your boundaries. Today, I live by that wisdom, and my life has never been better.